Sawadee Cup and welcome to another episode here for the Fungal Pod. And it's Monday and you know what it means. The MMA Monday back in your life. I'm sorry, I really like the intro. I like that intro that when Ariel does that. The MMA, I like that. I don't like the one announcer doing it. It's the one announcer, right? That annoying voice. I don't like that. It's really like the most annoying thing actually about like the MMA hour with Ariel Helwani, except the parlay, the betting stuff, because I think I didn't plan to talk about this, but it's ridiculous how many podcasts and shows such as Ariel's show are promoting betting. Betting is so bad. It gets so many people in trouble, gets so many people in distress. How can you still promote it, especially with like an audience of like, to take a book out of Sean Strickland, I don't know, or take a few talking points from Sean Strickland, people that are like sitting in bars, like with their butts, drinking beer and screaming at the screen. How do you tell them to spend their last few bucks on betting? And then acting like it's a science. That's really annoying. That's really bothersome. That's my biggest pet peeve with like all of those shows, but Ariel's show in particular, because Ariel is usually doing a great job as a journalist, but instigative, is that a thing? Instigative journalist. Usually great, but like this betting, pushing this betting thing for like 30 minutes every episode is just very annoying. And I know I don't need to listen to it, and I don't, and that's fine, but I'm just saying it's a bit annoying, or not annoying, it's a bit worrisome that like then those hardcore fans might think like that actually betting, especially like one of those co-hosts is like, yeah, you know, it's like make it sound like a science, like you can't do wrong if you follow his picks or anything. So I have some issues with that. They shouldn't be sponsored by betting. Betting should not be a sponsor thing. Make betting legal, yeah, sure, whatever, but don't allow advertisement for betting or something, or just have ethics and don't sell out to a betting site. I know the UFC does it, but the UFC clearly has no ethics. Like, I mean, power slap. So yeah, that's an issue with that. I don't know why I even talk about this right now. Anyways, let's start with what I want to talk about. I wanted to talk about one of the most important, amazing events we've seen in a long time. Power slap road to the finals. It's ridiculous, right? The fight between Volkanovski and Makhachev was fantastic. And if you're new to the program, I don't review the fights, right? There are so many other channels out there that do a good job reviewing. Not Ariel. Luke Thomas, I know Morning Combat. Jack Slack is fantastic in analyzing stuff. So there are really good channels out there. So I'm not reviewing those things. I just try to put on my media professor hat at times. I know it's difficult at times. Sometimes I don't know, wander off and then keep talking about other stuff. I try to put my media professor hat on and just look at like how the media talks about certain stuff, why they talk about certain stuff, how the production was a little bit. I talk about why the heck the UFC did not promote that fight the way they should have promoted it. I'm no kidding. Like, I'm not even making it up. I'm not exaggerating, but I saw more power slap content in my feed than UFC 284 promotion, which is ridiculous. The first time I saw that amazing video narrated by John Anik, who's fantastic. John Anik is the man. Like, his sit-down interview with Submission Radio killed it. The week of the fight week, they killed it with the content. Like, fantastic interviews. Some a bit too short. The one with Oscar Willis was way too short. But yeah, so they kill it. They're great guys. They're fantastic. What was I saying? Oh yeah, promotion. Yeah. So that was the first time that like the John Anik video, the narrated by John Anik, like how Alex Volkanovski became who he is and so on. I think I saw it like 2 days before the fight. Was the first time I saw that video in my feed. Insane. Why? All week long I saw just power slap road to the finals. What the fuck? This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. But hey, I talked about this on the podcast before. I think even last week and the week before, like how the UFC's promotional efforts are really biased, and they clearly, for some reason, I'm not quite sure why. I think for some reason they don't like Volkanovski. They don't want to push him. I don't know why. Like, I left like a joke comment on like one of the IG posts. I forgot which channel. But I said like biggest hurdle, the toughest challenge for Volkanovski. I said it before the fight will be always the public speaking and not Islam Makhachev. And I was joking, of course, because he's came leaps and bounds in terms of public speaking. I think he's gotten lot better, but he's just not a good trash talker, like in the moment, right? Or like selling the fights. He's not like as boisterous as like Izzy, for example. He's very funny. Like on Andrew Schultz, for example, Volkanovski was really funny. If you just let him talk, if you just listen to him, but he just doesn't have like this extravagant, like flamboyant, personality. And maybe that's why the UFC is not completely behind him. I don't know. Like he's the best fighter. He's still the pound for pound number one fighter. Don't tell me otherwise. He's the best fighter on the roster, most well rounded. And I've not been a fan for a while. I'm still not the biggest fan, to be honest. But I do appreciate it. Like I'm a Muay Thai person. Like I train Muay Thai almost every day. So I'm not a super professional, but I've been doing it for a long time, almost every day. So I probably more into the purist corner of the sport, maybe. Like when I watch stuff and I look at like, does it look nice? What kind of technique are they using? Or different types of Muay Thai are they using? And I know Muay Thai is not MMA, but when I look at Alex Volkanovski, it doesn't look nice. It's not pretty. But you gotta appreciate how he mixes everything together. It's just amazing. It's fantastic. Like the way he goes at it. It's just, and again, I'm not a review show, but the way he goes inside. Like I mean, against Holloway, I was Team Holloway for all three fights, but you were like, yeah, okay, Max is like doesn't have the power that he has, blah blah blah. But now against Makhachev being taller, he should have been stronger. But how he then just stepped in, like stepped in and then hit him. It was fantastic. So the UFC should push Volkanovski to the moon, in my opinion. For Makhachev, I'm not sure why they didn't. Like Makhachev said, like, oh, Dana forgot his name. I think that's just maybe Dana got slapped too much. I don't know, or he didn't take his vitamins or what. I do think they're very high on Makhachev. I mean, they kept pushing him like to the title pretty fast. I'm not fast in terms of like who he beat and then getting a title shot. I don't think that anything that indicates that they don't like Makhachev from my point of view. Now from a media point of view, right? What I said, they should have done a better job promoting it. I don't know why they didn't do a better job. They didn't want to give Volkanovski his flowers. That saying that apparently doesn't exist in Australia. Where Volkanovski said oh, I think that's how you say it, and the Australians were like, yeah, maybe we don't have that here. That's kind of funny. Yeah. Then when we go to the event though, and what they did at the event and how they present everything was fantastic. The fact that Dana White isn't there, whatever, no one cares anymore. Right? It shows something. It shows that he doesn't really care that much, I guess. But John Anik did a great job in making it feel really important. Like seriously, John Anik is the man. Like I think it would be way easier to replace Dana White than John Anik by now. Like John Anik is like he is so good at talking. Like he makes everything sound so important. It's fantastic. Okay, let's stick with commentary then. Bisping and Dominic Cruz. Dominic Cruz seemed like a bit absent in between. I don't know if he had to go to the toilet all the time or something. Like it was like especially in the prelims, like 5 minutes where he just wouldn't talk. I mean, what's happening with Cruz right now? Other than that, I do appreciate his insights. Obviously, I don't like. And I used to like the Bisping podcast with Louis J. Gomez, and right now I like the Bisping podcast if Anthony Smith is on, because I actually think Anthony Smith does a better job than Bisping in analyzing stuff. Bisping is too. I understand Dominic Cruz when he sometimes looks at Bisping like he has like just too many cliches that he just throws out there. It's just too cheesy from my point of view. It's just like he tries to appease everybody. He's just talking before he's thinking, and it's obvious, unfortunately. So I'm not a big fan of this anymore, unfortunately. I like it like in small bursts, but not in like those long forms. So that's a takeaway on the commentary. The production then was fantastic. I think it's a credit to the fans, not necessarily to the UFC production, because UFC production is always great. Don't get me wrong. The people that working there, they know what they're doing. But I think you just could mess it up. It was a small arena, like 15,000 people or something, 13, I think. But it sounded like 30,000. It's the loudest UFC event I've ever heard so far, I think. I want every event to be in Perth right now. At least in Australia, it was amazing. It was amazing. So it was great. The walkout of Volkanovski was fantastic. Again, production-wise, the music played loud enough, which is great. The whole audience singing Down Under, where women glow and men plunder, was fantastic. Makachev walkout was fantastic too, because all the boos. I saw on Twitter a few people in my timeline complained that like the Aussie fans were like calling the opposing fighters wankers, but I mean that's just Australia. It's like in jest, right? Just laugh it off. It's not like they're really trying to insult you. They're calling each other the C word, for God's sake. Okay. Other than that, now afterwards, the MMA media, right? So that's now always my main point, because I understand why the UFC is doing stuff, because they have their own point of view. They have like their own agendas. Everyone has an agenda, right? Agenda setting. The UFC has an agenda. Every media out there has an agenda. Now afterwards, the media world seems to be like divided into like Makachev is the best. Makachev won. That's like the media world, like DC. And then there's the rest of the media world that says like actually Volkanovski should have won. Upon rewatching, I do agree that I agree with the sentiment that like this is the second round, right? Initially watching, I thought Volkanovski edged the second round. So I had it 2-2 going in the final round, and in the final round you give it to Volkanovski. But I also thought that simply the image of now I'm reviewing anyways. I think the image of Makhachev being on the back in the fourth round forever just stuck to the head of the judges, and yeah. So that, I think like just also when he had him down in like the first round, I think that just like stuck to the head of the judges, and maybe that didn't leave the head anymore. I don't know. Not doing a review here, but how the media now then reacted to it, right? And how the media talks about it. And I think that Luke Thomas does really usually a good job. It's a little bit boring sometimes because he's just so he tries to be so unbiased. So I do enjoy when Brian Campbell's on there, which just throws like a wrench in the wheels, just trying to derail Luke Thomas. I like that. That's why I like Luis J. Gomez on the Bisping podcast too. And I think maybe now even Luis J. Gomez and Anthony Smith would be hilarious. Okay, but back to that. So I think Luke Thomas, of course, does a great job at being more unbiased than most others. And Helvani, not too much, but like his co-hosts, one of those, he's usually like very emotionless, which is then also in this case like a good thing, I think, just to look at it like what actually happened. I think the narrative that a rematch would be warranted is not a bad narrative. Half your year defend the interim title. It's still a champion, so I think no one's gonna be mad at a rematch except one person, which is Beneil Dariush, and Beneil Dariush needs to do even more media, I think. The problem with Dariush is that he does the cool... And I understand it. Like if I would be Dariush, I would do the same thing. I just do interviews with the cool guys. He does interviews with Submission Radio because the guys are cool. He does interview with the Schmo because the Schmo is cool. He doesn't do much of the other stuff, and not, at least not as much. And that he's not talking trash on social media. Maybe that's something he should be doing. Beneil, just start talking trash on social media. Maybe that gets you in there. Yes, I think. Now it's really important what the media is going to push. So to put on that media professor hat one last time, right? I know I put it off a few times today simply because I'm still so amazed by the fight that we saw, because it was a fantastic fight. Let's make no mistake. In all the other fights, like Yair Rodriguez versus Josh Emmett was amazing. Yeah, I haven't seen a left kick that fast in quite a while. But Yair Rodriguez, like, I was feeling the pain that Josh Emmett felt, like, because I thought like it's going to be a head kick too, and then he goes through the body. It was fantastic. It was great. Like, as a Muay Thai practitioner, I was really amazed by it. It was fantastic. Like those left kicks. I mean, I don't like to exaggerate, but maybe it was the fastest one since Barbosa that I've seen, like, in an MMA fight. It was fantastic. Like, that was so fast. Crazy. So it was fantastic. Jack Della Maddalena. Oh my God. There was so many amazing fights. Like, even Jimmy Crute fight. How is this even a draw with a point deduction? Please. Anyways, great fight. So I'm still a bit taken aback by the awesomeness that this fight card was, because before we said, like, oh, the fight card is not that great. It was fantastic. It was just fantastic. Like, just to have Aussies fight in Australia all the time, they just bring it. It was amazing. So I'm still a bit like in the fan mode rather than the professor mode, but I try to put it on one last time now, and think that the media now actually is going to decide what's going to happen next. I don't think it's going to be Dana White or the UFC necessarily deciding what's going to happen next. They probably going to say first, yeah, let's go back into the weight class. But when they actually think about it, that having Yair defend his belt as an interim champ is not a bad thing, and just go right back at Volk versus Makhachev. Because just imagine how many pay-per-views they're going to sell off of that now, after the rematch. Everybody wants to see that now. Like, that's gonna probably one of the most sold pay-per-views right after Conor Khabib, I would assume. I'm simply guessing. That would be. I don't think the UFC is gonna say no to that much money, to be honest. And I know they get all the money from ESPN anyways, but I mean, it's gonna be like a huge feather in the cap if they have like this super high-selling pay-per-view now, in my opinion. So I think, depending on how the media frames it, if the media gets behind, we want to see a rematch, we need to see a rematch. Now, with the accusations out there, allegedly Islam, according to Dan Hooker, Islam took some IVs to rehydrate. It's just allegations, so no proof of anything just yet. But even with that out there, Islam walking to his corner and again allegedly saying that he wants a rematch because he thought he lost. I mean, you can't just sell all of that and just like go all in on the rematch, make that the next fight. Have your ear defend against Arnold Allen or Max Holloway. Either fight's gonna be awesome. It's only gonna suck for Benil Dariush. It's literally the only odd man out. It's the only guy. I mean, if he beats Charles Oliveira, otherwise Charles Oliveira, I'm sure, is happy to just wait for the winner of Alex and Makhachev again. But if in case Benil wins against Charles Oliveira, and he has to wait even longer, it's gonna be annoying. Okay, so that's just my quick thoughts. I know today not that much of a media professor had on, just because I'm still buzzing with like what Volkanovski pulled off there, and I wasn't the biggest Volkanovski fan before. Like I said, so it's not like super biased, a bit biased maybe, but not super biased. Big biased because I lived in Australia for like a while, so I'm like quarter Aussie in my head, so I'm cheering when down under plays. I'm like, yeah, let's go. So maybe a bit biased, but I wasn't the biggest Volkanovski fan going into that, and still I'm not, like I said earlier, based on like just the technique and everything, not the biggest fan, but give the guy like his flowers, I think. And so yeah, that's why maybe today a little bit less of an analyst, of a media professor hat, and more still of a buzzing fan hat. I'll promise I'll take the buzzing fan hat off again, and then next time around there's no pay-per-view, there's just a fight night, so I'm going to be all cool, calm and collected again, and look into all the mistakes the UFC is making when it comes to how they utilize the media. Until then, as always, like, share, subscribe, rate the podcast if possible. The algorithm likes that, so then more people find us. It would be cool. The algorithm doesn't like when I say algorithm, though. Like and share and subscribe and rate anyways. And of course, as always, stay safe, take care, keep your guard up. We talk soon. Saudi Cup.